Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Diablo Immortal got the better Berserk crossover event than Diablo 4. We're almost 2 weeks into Season 8 of D4. The Berserk event kicked off this week, so let's talk about this IP collab, what's working this season, and what is not. We'll also cover the new details on Path of Exile 2's upcoming patch, last Epoch's retention nosedive, No Rest for the Wicked's rough patch, Clair Obscur's breakout success, and GTA 6 obliterating trailer view records. So, if you enjoy hearing about ARPGs or just big gaming news stories, hit that subscribe button and join Rykker's Raiders for more weekly gaming news. Starting with Diablo 4 news. Again, we're almost 2 weeks into Season 8, and depending on who you ask, the season is either a total mess or a welcome return to real progression. Let's start with the good. Some players are genuinely enjoying the season. The progression from zero to hero feels more noticeable than before. There's challenge again. Tiers of difficulty, torments feel earned. This is what I like most about the season and why I'm having fun. I got my Necromancer to a satisfying end phase of progression, and now I'm starting a rogue. Obel gambling this season is back in a big way. You can now teleport directly to lair bosses as well as other players in your party. Great quality of life changes this season. Then every class has at least one great farming build. The reputation track, once you've finished it, you can grind it endlessly for extra rewards that are pretty great, guaranteed GAs. And you can farm it pretty easily doing Infernal Hordes while picking Ether Lords. But then there's the rest of it. Let's start with the Berserk crossover, which kicked off this week. A collab with one of the most iconic manga franchises of all time. Should have been a slam dunk. Instead, people are complaining about class-locked cosmetics, no real gameplay content, and a price tag that, well, if you want to buy all the Berserk cosmetics that are for sale, it'll cost you 16,500 platinum, or roughly $150 US. Meanwhile, in Diablo Immortal, they actually got an event that includes gameplay. There's a dungeon, there's a boss, there's also cosmetics for each class. I'm just consistently jealous of the events that Diablo Immortal gets. There clearly exists within Blizzard the ability to have these event ideas, so why does Immortal get them and not Diablo 4? Because in D4, the Berserk event is basically just, as you play the game as you normally do, elite enemies will sometimes drop something called Baylets, and you gotta collect 500 of these to unlock all the free cosmetics that come with this event. And that's it. There's no actual gameplay, no new boss, no new dungeon, no storyline, nothing. Oh, by the way, doing Helltide seems to be the best way to farm up these Baylets. Either Blood Maiden, she drops them consistently, or just go around hunting for elites. Don't get me wrong, getting some free cosmetics is nice, or some earnable cosmetics rather is nice, but you know, you look over at your neighbor's lawn and you know, they're getting all this other stuff. Now back to those Baylets. Some people are complaining about how they were added into the game because you have to actually click on them to pick them up. They don't get auto picked up by your pet or just by walking over them. They're also pretty easy to miss. They don't have a beam, they don't have a minimap indicator, and their color can get easily lost in just the mess of items. And they don't get mailed to your stash if you miss them. Now, I think I understand why Blizzard made it this way, because I think if we would just automatically scoop them up like other materials, then we wouldn't even realize that there was an event going on at all. And they can't mail them to us because these aren't items that go into our stash or our inventory. They are interactable things on the ground that we click on. That said, I think it would be nice if we could at least get a minimap icon ping for when these things drop. Now, outside of the event, some of the changes to the boss fights have come under criticism. The multi-phase fights, in particular with invulnerability phases, Andariel specifically, plus the Mephisto Wolf to a lesser extent, they stand out as particularly difficult boss fights with their near one-shot mechanics, and just especially compared to Uber Belial, who you would think is going to be the most challenging boss, being at the top of that boss ladder, but he's actually easier in comparison because he doesn't have these invulnerability phases. Now, personally, I think it's a shame that the Andariel fight is really the Three Pillars fight. I mean, seriously, you spend less time fighting Andariel than you spend dealing with those pillars. It's just a far cry from her D2 fight where she has this iconic boss lair, and she'd chase you around that blood pit. Then there's, you know, some lesser nuisances as well. Infernal hordes have this weird UI bug. Oftentimes you can't see what wave you're on or how much ether you have. I'm not sure how this happened, given nothing really changed with Infernal Hordes this season. Then we got some players wondering why 8 seasons in, we still have to unlock waypoints every season. Rune drops, maybe a little undertuned this season, a little too rare. It seems it's actually harder to get the runes to craft a mythic than it is to get the sparks to craft a mythic. Mythics do seem harder to come by, and again, that's not a complaint. I've always been in favor of difficult to acquire mythics. The people that I run with, they found multiple mythics, and I finally found one after like a week, and that's totally fine with me. And I got lucky that the mythic that I did get was one that I needed. But I think the fact that some mythics are kind of useless could lead to some feels bad moments where it's like, oh, well, that's a nice spark. I mean, especially imagine getting like a 4 Greater Affix Melted Heart of Selig, where it's like, wow, like I got a 4 GA mythic. Like, what are the odds of that? GAs also seem particularly rare this season, multi-GA items, which again I'm fine with. But imagine getting a 4 GA Melted Heart of Selig, and it's just like, oh wow, like great. So maybe, what if multi-GA mythics broke down into a number of sparks equal to their GAs? So at least, hey, I'm getting 4 sparks out of this. Now again, overall, I said I really like how progression is this season. One bit of progression that seems a little out of alignment is gem fragments. It takes really long to max out all your gems, which, you know, is not too bad. I don't really mind that, but it's that the season journey includes some steps that involve spending a ton of gem fragments that would take an eternity to farm up. Like, you're going to be well done your season journey, or the rest of the steps of your season journey, before you ever go back and like complete those, you know, whatever the penultimate step on the season journey is. It just feels like those objectives were picked during a different drop paradigm where it was a lot easier to get gem fragments. My recommendation to you folks are just skip those. You don't have to do every step in the season journey. Skip those, maybe, you know, complete them way later, but just do the other objectives in the meantime. Another thing I see some players complaining about is a stale meta. I just released this week my video on the top 10 builds of Season 8. Do be sure to check that out. And 5 of those builds were in my Season 7 top 10 video. Oh, then there's the memory leak. There's a bad memory leak going around in Season 8. It's affecting RAM and VRAM, leading to game crashes on machines that used to run Diablo 4 just fine. There's also some reports of people losing their paid cosmetics from seasons, with Blizzard support not helping at all. And this has been ongoing for some time. Some users reporting it's been over 40 days. They still haven't gotten their cosmetics back. Now, all that said, some folks are holding on to the fun of just playing, blasting demons, leveling up, getting loot. As I mentioned, I'm enjoying this season because the feeling is just right for me. I don't know how much longer before I'm done with the season, but I'm just hoping that we can keep this feeling and maybe next season get a creative season theme that can really build on what we have. You know, dungeon escalation is what was on the roadmap for Season 9, and in my interview with Brent Gibson, I tried to guess at what that maybe meant. Maybe some kind of increasingly difficult dungeon, going down in levels, it's getting harder and harder. Check out my interview for his response. Oh, then an interesting thing. Blizzard accidentally left a placeholder item in the game for a while this season. Some rogue players were finding the Icarus Salvation unique gloves, which are marked PH for placeholder. And these were resulting in a combination so broken that it was creating basically infinite damage numbers. Blizzard quickly issued a hotfix to disable them, but still, you know, kind of funny. Now lastly for D4, we also got patch notes for a patch coming out May 14th. It includes some buffs to Spiritborn. Need it. Spiritborn is kind of in the last place of all classes right now, but I'm not sure the buffs are even enough. We're also seeing buffs to Whirlwind Barbarian, Minion Necro, also to Poison Trap Rogue. The devs are really trying to make that build a thing. Oh, and a great change, you can now spend Spectral Ash to buy Reputation. Once all your boss powers are maxed, you kind of have no use for Spectral Ash anymore, so this is a great change. But I turn the question to you folks, what is your verdict on Season 8, almost 2 weeks in now? Sound off in the comments. Then in some Path of Exile 2 news, patch 0.2.0H is coming soon, and it's bringing some long-requested quality of life features that players have been begging for since launch. First up, unidentified item tiers will now be filterable. That means you'll finally be able to change how those tier 1 to tier 5 magic and rare items show up before they are identified. We're also getting 2 new stash tabs. There's a ritual tab, which stores your omens and audiences with the king, and the socketable tab, where you'll be tossing in your runes, talismans, and soul cores. You can even upgrade runes directly from the tab, which is a small thing, but a huge convenience win. And speaking of loot, yep, it seems to be fixed as per player reports. For real this time. Currency's coming in strong. Strong boxes are actually worth clicking on now. People are seeing rares and tiered drops at a satisfying rate. And the general consensus is, we are so back. But now that loot's been cleaned up, the spotlight has shifted to what else needs attention. The endgame loop still doesn't seem to be hitting for a lot of players. Build diversity is also an issue. Also, crafting still feels more like an advanced gambling system than a real crafting system. Now, we're 3 weeks into Dawn of the Hunt, and the devs shared some interesting stats. 24% of players are running Amazon, 12% Lich, and 10% Deadeye. Those are the top 3 classes. So, PoE 2 is undeniably improving and fast. GGG is listening, they're reacting, they're patching hard, but there's still a long road ahead before the game becomes the endgame ARPG experience many players are hoping for. But what do you folks think? Are you all in on PoE now that loot's finally worth picking up again, or are you still waiting for more systems to come in, waiting for the game to catch up more to PoE 1? Then in some no rest for the wicked news, the game's latest major update, The Breach, had a rocky launch. Despite adding a ton of new content, the balance was so off at launch that the Steam reviews tanked, hitting just 38% positive. That's brutal for any studio, let alone a fully indie one like Moon. They've been cooking on this update for 8 months, their biggest update since their early access launch last year, and right out the gate they got steamrolled in the reviews, mostly due to the balance tuning. To Moon's credit, they issued not only 1, but 2 rapid-fire hotfixes, and the difference was immediate. They resolved most of the major complaints within days. Now reviews have clawed their way back up to around 60% positive, but I imagine a lot of players who left a negative review still haven't gone and changed their review in reflection of the hotfixes, which is a real shame, and it's hurting the game. Because the game itself was great, beautiful, both visually and in sound design and music. It's immersive, a world you can lose yourself in. This game has tons of potential, and I hope to see that potential fully realized rather than it be an early access casualty. Of course, there are areas for improvement. In fact, the devs are currently experimenting with an enormous possible change. Rather than a classless system in which you invest points into different attributes like strength, dex, etc., to define your build, they're thinking of introducing classes into the game so the players don't keep bricking their characters with poor attribute allocation. It's really bold of them to want to experiment with such a drastic change. And I think I'd recommend they do this on a separate testing branch rather than pushing it through to everyone. There currently are fans of the game, and if this change is not received well, it could push them away. A beta test with an opt-in core audience would determine whether it's safe to pursue this or not. Because another potential solution to this problem that does not require completely changing how character progression works is to just make respecs a lot more readily available. People don't want to commit their points to strength or dex because respec is not easy and players don't know early on what weapon they want to spec into. By going strength, you lock into a strength build, and then what happens if you find a great dexterity weapon? By picking the safe attributes like stamina, equip load, focus, and health, then no matter what your build, you've picked something helpful. The thing is, I know they don't want to make respec easy. They want the decisions to have weight and meaning. But for those of you who play the game, what do you think they should do here? Should they add classes? Should they change how attributes work? Should they add more readily available respec? Sound off in the comments. On to some Last Epoch news. Patch 1.2.3 went live this week, bringing with it a ton of bug fixes, but also a surprising host of quality of life improvements. Stash searching now supports macros, including regex. So if you're the type of person who likes to search for prefix, fire, ampersand, suffix, crit, ampersand, item level greater than 80, congrats, you're now officially in heaven. WASD players also got some love with a new option to disable ground movement from the left mouse button while allowing rebinding for ability to be used for both regular interactions and ability casting. That's great. Also, a fix to the possessed witch's tangled lasers. Turns out it was incorrectly counting as a hit. It is now a dot again and deals 52% less damage, which nerfed. Panic over. But we are now 3 weeks into the season, and concurrent player counts have gone from a peak of 150,000 down to about 30,000. That's about 20% retention. Typical Path of Exile retention 3 weeks into a league is 50%. And in the worst cases, we'd hit 20% retention by week 5. As you know, I think very highly of Last Epoch, and I believe the game is well regarded in the ARPG community. We did have the release of the new D4 season that took some players away from Last Epoch, but I doubt that alone accounts for this significant of a drop in retention. Now, when we were just 1 week into the season, I said that Last Epoch's retention was looking similar to PoE, which is a harder game, and I speculated on whether more challenge was necessary for long-term retention. And we faced a similar situation last year. Game released, it was well received, but then retention cratered. And I made an entire video talking about retention in ARPGs using Last Epoch as an example that, on paper, is doing everything correctly, and yet retention still drops precipitously. To some extent, this is just what happens with ARPGs. To another, there's a significant portion of the player base that enjoys things this way. They want to get their week or two in, blast the game to their satisfaction, and then move on to other games and then return to Last Epoch for the next update. Now, if you folks have stopped playing Last Epoch, I'd like to ask, why? Because I'm concerned that the answer may be something difficult to pinpoint. That we like the game, we have no serious complaints that make us stop playing, but we just reach a point where we lose the desire to log in again. And that's really the worst answer because it's not something that the devs can easily address. Like if we were saying, oh, there's not enough endgame bosses, or the game isn't challenging enough, those are things that devs can easily act upon. But just, yeah, I like the game, I have no complaints, I just lose a desire to keep playing is, what do you do with that? Ultimately, though, it also leads to the follow-up question. If you stop playing Last Epoch for this season, are you still eager to return next season? And if the answer is yes, then does it really matter if the game can only retain people for a short amount of time? Does it matter to players? Does it matter to the ARPG community? Does it matter to the devs? Does it hurt their numbers, or is it fine as long as people come back next season? These are definitely big topics to mull over. Then in some Grand Theft Auto news, the second trailer for GTA 6 dropped this week, and it's already breaking records. According to Rockstar, this new trailer hit a jaw-dropping 475 million views across all platforms in a single day. In a single day. That's more than the combined trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine and Fantastic Four. And this isn't even the first time Rockstar smashed records. Trailer 1 from back in 2023 hit 93 million views in just 24 hours, setting the YouTube bar for game trailers. And while fans are absolutely buzzing about the game's visuals, the world detail, that unmistakable Vice City vibe, there's one thing noticeably absent from the hype. A PC release date. With the console release on May 2026, I think the best we can hope for as PC players is a port to hit in 2027, maybe 2028. Let's just hope it doesn't drag out to 5 years. We know that Rockstar is not going to release on PC same day because they can take advantage of the double dip. A lot of us PC players also own consoles. We're not going to want to wait, so we're going to buy it on console, and then when it comes out on PC, we're going to buy it on PC again. But let's talk about what's in the game. Screenshots and details from Rockstar's website show off at least 6 major locations. We got Vice City, which is their parody of Miami. They're showing the Leonida Keys, which ought to be their parody of the Florida Keys. They're showing Grass Rivers, which seems to be their parody of the Everglades. They got Port Gellhorn, Ambrosia, and Mount Calaga National Park. From the screenshots and everything, the world seems so packed with density. This is looking to be possibly the greatest open world game ever made from the perspective of richness of the world. Rockstar also seems to be pulling in a lot from Red Dead Redemption 2. There's signs that hair and beard growth systems are returning from that game, along with the RDR2 style physics, weighty character animations, and what looks like a stricter weapon carry limit. Also, you can maybe see the main character's physique changing throughout the trailer, so I'm wondering if we're getting San Andreas style bodybuilding mechanics. I mean, we do have that beach scene where he's bench pressing. Also worth noting, the trailer's tone, soundtrack, and visual style are still dripping with that classic Vice City energy. The dual protagonists are giving me some major Bonnie and Clyde vibes, and if I had to bet, this story's going to end in a tragedy somehow. Meanwhile, Genji Japan reports that Hideo Kojima spoke about how the industry does indeed try to avoid releasing their games within the release window of major blockbuster titles like GTA 6. Many publishers have been hesitant to give release dates for their upcoming games, waiting for GTA 6 to drop their release date. So now that that has happened, we may get, during this year's Summer Games Fest, for instance, a flood of release dates for the next 6 to 12 months. But what do you folks think? Is GTA 6 shaping up to be the biggest entertainment launch in history? Drop your thoughts below. Then in breakout JRPG news, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is absolutely killing it. The game crossed 2 million copies sold in 12 days, and according to analysts, it's outselling Metaphor ReFantazio more than 2-to-1 on PC. So what's behind this meteoric rise? Why is this game selling so well? Well, let's break it down. For starters, it's cheaper than your average AAA release, and the sub 50 price point on Steam turned a lot of, maybe I'll buy this later buyers into, yeah, why not buyers. It also launched day one on Game Pass, which might have hurt Xbox sales directly, but it supercharged word of mouth, which helped off-platform sales skyrocket. The fact that it didn't do the usual exclusive release shuffle, no year-long console exclusivity, no Epic Store lockdown, that just made it easier for everyone to jump in at launch, no matter where you play. Then there's the art style. A lot of people are calling it a JRPG for folks who don't like anime. Expedition 33 has the DNA of a classic JRPG. Turn-based combat, emotional story beats, tonal shifts between melancholy and humor, but without the exaggerated tropes and teenage melodrama that push some people away from the genre. The characters are adult, for the most part. The conversations feel grounded and natural, and even the teenage characters behave more mature than most grown-ups in JRPGs. Another major selling point, the game actually runs well. In 2025, it's almost a miracle. Plus, the game just screams effort. There's no palette-swapped enemies, there are unique side bosses, there's minimal bloat in the game. The whole experience feels tight, polished, and high quality. And it's coming from a small team. Seriously, the lead writer and the composer were discovered on Reddit and SoundCloud. You'd never guess this game was made by a bunch of first-timers who found each other during the pandemic. The result being one of the most well-written and emotionally resonant RPGs in years, with the soundtrack that people are already calling masterpiece level. And the publisher said that the surprise shadow drop of the Oblivion remaster helped actually draw attention to quality RPGs that week instead of stealing spotlight from them. Many fans are already calling this game their game of the year, some even saying it's game of the decade. A lot of you folks have told me I gotta play this game, and yes, I do have to. I just have to wait for things to quiet down with ARPGs. There's a lot going on right now, but this is definitely on my list and has been since I first saw the trailer. Then in some Palworld news, the Pokemon lawyers have struck again. Palworld's developers at Pocket Pair just confirmed they're making some big unwanted changes to the game, and they're blaming Nintendo's lawsuit for it. As you may recall, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company filed a lawsuit in Japan last year, claiming Palworld infringes on not one, not two, but 3 patents tied to monster catching and other mechanics. These patents originally were filed between February and July of last year, just after Palworld launched in January 2024. One change that already went live was that you can no longer summon pals using pal spheres. That was patched out, but now more changes are coming. For example, from now on, if you want to glide, you'll need to carry an actual glider. No more soaring majestically through the skies with your pal lifting you. Your pals will still give you passive gliding buffs, but the main gliding mechanic, gone. Now, it should be noted that initial patent applications began in 2021, but they refined them to specifically target Palworld in 2024 after the game blew up in popularity. I personally think it's pretty BS that companies can patent game mechanics, at least mechanics as broad as this. It hurts us, the consumer, because it limits the ability of the industry to evolve. Most games are evolutions on existing formulas, refinements. I mean, imagine Hollywood patenting certain camera techniques. Oh, you're not allowed to use a Dutch angle or shot reverse shot, or you can't use a matte painting because they've been patented. Imagine a fiction author not being allowed to use a certain sentence structure because it's been patented. Imagine not being able to write a story about the hero's journey because it's been patented. What a nightmare world. To me, this particular lawsuit is just pettiness. If anything, there was IP copyright infringement from Palworld because, yeah, the game looks a lot like Pokemon. But Nintendo realized they could not win a copyright case, so they're just coming up with whatever technically legal means of taking these guys down a peg. But what's your take, folks? Are Nintendo's lawsuits protecting their IP, or are they just gatekeeping basic game mechanics? Sound off in the comments. Then in some Unreal news, Tim Sweeney has revealed the first details about Unreal Engine 6 in a recent interview with Lex Friedman. According to Sweeney, UE6 is still a few years out, but preview versions could start rolling out in 2 to 3 years. The focus? Making gameplay programming easier for both Fortnite creators and professional devs. It'll also be more scalable for massive simulations and more user-friendly across the board, which should make it easier for studios to hire programmers already familiar with the engine. Now, if you're hoping for some kind of revolutionary leap like some of the past Unreal engines, yeah, Sweeney says this will be more of an evolution, building on the UE5 foundation rather than tossing it out. And honestly, that might make sense because, let's be real, most games today still don't even use Unreal Engine 5's flashiest features like Nanite or Lumen. But not everyone's excited. Some devs are frustrated by what they see as Epic's over-focus on Fortnite, which is just further reinforced in what Sweeney was saying about UE6. But of course, there's the elephant in the room. Performance. Some folks say that Unreal Engine games, Unreal Engine 5 specifically, have been running like crap. Stuttering, poor optimization, heavy reliance on DLSS just to get decent frame rates. But here's the thing that most don't see. If you talk to technical artists, as I have, then you'll learn that the problem isn't with the engine itself. It's with the state of the industry. Among other responsibilities, tech artists are the people who optimize your game's visuals. So what we have is an industry of devs jumping onto Unreal Engine 5, sometimes abandoning in-house engines that they have years of expertise with because it was a new shiny thing. Unreal Engine is the way of the future. Everyone's going to be working on Unreal Engine. It's going to be easier to hire people, and onboard people onto our project because they're going to be familiar with Unreal Engine. We're working on Unreal Engine. We can swap people between teams. No one has to learn a whole new engine. So tech artists are forced to learn this new engine. They're forced to implement the shiny new features, no matter the performance cost. Unreal Engine 5 provides a robust suite of tools, but not enough people have the experience to wield those tools correctly. Plus, in the post-COVID era of mass layoffs, there's a brain drain. Institutional knowledge is being lost. New and inexperienced tech artists are being hired, and not in sufficient numbers because optimization just isn't a priority by devs currently. Tech artists are saying, hey, we need to sacrifice X, Y, and Z to improve performance. And they're met with, just make it work. It's better for the game to look beautiful and run like crap than for the screenshots to look dated and the game runs smoothly, but no one buys the game. I know the popular meme is to dunk on Unreal Engine 5 these days, but the problem isn't the engine itself, it's that the industry is flocking to it like the second coming of RNGesus and thinking it's a miracle engine that instantly makes everything amazing, while not actually putting in the resources to make the best use of the engine from an optimization standpoint. But lastly, in some Kingdom Come news, Kingdom Come Deliverance II has already sold over 3 million copies. That's just the sequel. If you tally the original game, we're now looking at a combined total of more than 10 million Kingdom Come game copies sold altogether. Not bad for a series that once got labeled Skyrim without magic. The game's reception has been glowing. Some people think it's going to be Game of the Year. We are in a year that already seems packed with Game of the Year contenders, though. The game's performance has been praised, which, 2025, game performing well. Again, it's a miracle. Now, some players said the series took a little time to really grab them, but once it did, it completely won them over. Seems like a lot of folks are falling in love with Kingdom Come, either all over again or for the first time. But what do you think, folks? Is Kingdom Come Deliverance living up to the hype for you? Or is it still sitting on your backlog, waiting for you to finally learn how to sword fight without button mashing? Sign off in the comments because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed my preliminary review of Diablo 4 Season 8. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.